In 2025, the currency markets did something, well, a little weird. You had a bunch of major currencies getting stronger against the US dollar, but the Indian rupee, it actually went down. So, what's the deal with that? Let's get into it.
So let's talk about what we're calling the currency shock of 2025. It was a year full of surprises, for sure. But for us in India, the biggest story was the rupee's really unexpected move.
Okay, so check this out. Last year, a whopping 7 major world currencies actually beat the US dollar. We all kind of think the dollar is this unbeatable champion, right? Well, 2025 really challenged that idea.
And that right there brings us to our big mystery. If all these other currencies were doing so well, what on earth happened to the rupee? Why did it fall? Let's unpack this.
But before we solve the mystery of the rupee, let's take a quick look at the winners. Who were these currencies that had such a fantastic year and actually managed to push back against the dollar?
First up, and this one's a big one, the Mexican peso. It had an absolutely incredible year, strengthening by nearly 16% against the US dollar. Now, in the world of currency, that is a huge, huge gain.
And then you've got the euro. It also had a really strong year, but kind of quietly, No big headlines, no major drama. It just put up a solid 14% gain against the dollar. That really shows you its resilience. And it wasn't just those two. The Aussie and Canadian dollars also saw some nice gains, mostly thanks to strong global trade and energy exports. Heck, even the Chinese yuan and Japanese yen basically held their own. So the trend was pretty clear, right? It was a year where the dollar took a bit of a backseat. Okay, so now for the main event. Let's bring it back home. Why did our currency, the Indian rupee, go in the complete opposite direction of this global trend? What was going on? And here it is, the number that really caught everyone off guard. In 2025, the rupee fell by over 4% against the US dollar. Just think about that. While other currencies were rising, ours was falling. Now, to really feel what that means, imagine this. If you had 100 rupees in your wallet on January 1st, by the end of the year, its power to buy things internationally had shrunk to about 96 rupees. Suddenly, that 4% drop feels a lot more personal, doesn't it? And this chart just lays it all out crystal clear. Look at those huge gains for the peso and the euro, and then you see the rupee, all alone down there in negative territory. It's a perfect visual of what we mean by the currency shock of 2025. So you're probably asking why? Why did this happen? Well, it was really a perfect storm of three things. First, we had capital outflows. That's just a fancy way of saying foreign investors were taking their money out of India. Second, trade pressure was building. The cost of stuff we import was going up. And finally, when the world gets a little shaky, a lot of investors just default to the US dollar as a safe place, and that pushes down other currencies like ours. Okay, so all this big picture, global currency stuff can feel a bit abstract, right? But believe me, it has a very real, direct impact on our day-to-day finances. Let's break down how the shock of 2025 actually hit your wallet. Yeah, this really shows you the two sides of the same coin. On the one hand, if you had family sending you money from abroad, it was actually a pretty good year. Take Canada, for example. The Canadian dollar got stronger, going from 59 to 65 rupees, so those remittances were suddenly worth more. But on the flip side, if you were dreaming of a trip to Europe, that dream got about 11% more expensive. Your travel money just didn't go as far. All right, so after a wild year like 2025, what's the big takeaway here? What's the one crucial lesson we should all remember as we move forward? It's this. And it's a big one. The idea that the US dollar is always the safe bet, always the winner. Well, it's just not true. 2025 proved, without a doubt, that other currencies can and do outperform it. Just betting on the dollar year after year is not a winning strategy. So how do you protect yourself from this stuff? Well, smart investors use a strategy called currency hedging. The easiest way to think about it is like insurance. It's insurance for your investments against these crazy swings in currency values. It's all about managing that risk, and frankly, it's a critical part of any diversified investment plan. And that really leaves us with one final and I think very important question to think about. When you look back at the shock of 2025, you have to ask yourself, is my own financial plan, my investment strategy ready for this kind of thing? It's definitely something we all need to be thinking about.